Tonight's first speaker, TENTalker, will be an individual who will talk about the power of gratitude and the power of having a positive perspective. Ladies and gentlemen, Howie and Nestel.
Thank you. Americans say thank you on average 13 times a day. That's 5,000 times a year. But half the time, we don't actually mean it. When expressing gratitude properly, face-to-face can make a big difference. When that's not an option, a simple phone call or small token of appreciation can also do the trick. Did you know that 1/3 of Americans have never given someone a box of chocolates, flowers, or even sent out a handwritten thank you card? Gratitude is the secret to a happy life, and I'll explain. Without gratitude, no matter how much money we make, how big our homes are, how many cars we have, or how famous we become, we're always left with a sense of wanting something more, something different. I'm going to use a little bit of audience participation here. I'm going to say gratitude is so important, and I want you to say how important is it. Gratitude is so important. It's so important that the UN General Assembly has designated every January 11th as World Thank You Day. A day to not only reflect on the importance of gratitude, but to actually thank people that actually and truly deserve it. The UN could probably stand to thank Israel for some of the good things they've done, but I digress. I have many reasons to be grateful. I think of Pirkei Avot, Ethics of Our Fathers, and the line or the question that asks, who is rich? He who rejoices in his portion. In other words, the person who is satisfied with what she has. I'm reminded of a beautiful old Jewish story. I apologize to the Chabad rabbis, you guys don't have an exclusive on old Jewish stories. This boy is studying in class with his young rabbi younger than even Rabbi Teldin, and the rabbi closes with this on a Friday afternoon to his students. He said, you should thank God for all the good things that happen in your life. And with the same fervor and the same enthusiasm, you should thank him for all the bad things that happen in your life. And with that, have a good Shabbos. See you all on Monday. Kids all take off, except this one boy goes up to the rabbi and says, Rabbi, I get it. I thank God for all the good things that have ever happened to me. But how do I thank him for all the bad things that happen in my life? And the young rabbi says, I've struggled with that question ever since I was taught that when I was about your age. While I don't feel qualified to give you a full answer on that, I would like for you to go visit this very learned man, very scholarly. His name is Benjamin. He lives at the end of town. And perhaps he can answer that question for you. And in those days, it wasn't like today that the further out of town you lived, the wealthier you were, like, the Dominion or Bernie. In those days, the further out of town you lived, the poorer you were. So this boy sets out to go find this man named Benjamin, goes past the city center, outskirts of town, past the city cemetery and the city dump. Finally comes across this one-room shack. Knocks on the door, there's no answer, knocks again, there's no answer. The boy says, I've come all this way, he says to himself, so he pushes the door open, sees this little old man sitting on a bench with his face buried in a book, reading by candlelight. And he says to him, are you Benjamin? And the man doesn't look up. So the boy yells a little bit louder, he says, is your name Benjamin? The man looks up, he says, yes, come closer, he says, I'm almost deaf. And as the boy approaches him, he notices that this old man's eyes are covered in cataracts and his face has boils on it. And he says, my rabbi asked me to come ask you a question. And the man says, would you like to sit down? I can offer you a glass of water, but I don't have any food for you because I'm very poor. And the boy says, no, I'd like to just ask my question and go home if that's okay. And the man says, sure. And he says, my rabbi said I should thank God for all the good things that happen in my life. But I should also thank him for all the bad things that happen in my life. So how do you thank God for all the bad things that happen in your life? And the man thinks for a second and he says, I'm sorry that you came all this way. You see, because nothing bad has ever happened in my life. As we approach the high holidays, there are a lot of things to be grateful for. I'm grateful that 11 years ago, I was diagnosed with Graves' disease and had my thyroid removed. It put me on the path of fitness and health. I'm grateful that 6 years ago, we suffered a devastating house fire. My wife, kids, and I got out through a door on the side of the house that less than 5 minutes after we got out collapsed due to cars exploding in the garage. We lived in a hotel for a month and a half and in an apartment for a year and a half. But in that time, it brought my family closer together. I'm grateful that every summer I got to spend a week with 150 beautiful children battling cancer, and I've been doing that for about 15 years. They taught me a lot, not the least of which is bravery. I said earlier that gratitude was the key to happiness. That same key unlocks the fullness of life. It could take what we have and make it enough. It has the power to turn a meal into a feast. It could turn a simple roof over our heads into a mansion. John F. Kennedy said, "As we show gratitude, we must never forget that the highest appreciation is not to utter words, but to live by them." Good night.